911. What is the address of your emergency?
Oh my, I need an ambulance right away.
Ma'am, calm down. What's going on there?
I think my mother fell down the stairs and with a knife in her hand and stabbed herself. Oh my God.
Is she breathing?
No.
Ma'am.
It looked like she was strangled, stabbed, and beaten in the head. To me, that's definite overkill.
I see my mother laying there. I assume she was hurt. There was a knife sticking out. I mean, I figured she fell.
Whenever someone of considerable wealth is murdered, we look at who has a motive.
They were already trying to focus in on me. Where was I? What was I doing?
It was all about greed and money, who has access to the house.
5 unique perspectives, 5 points of view, 1 murder.
I'm Peggy Nadell's daughter.
I was the lead detective
I am
working
my
that
longtime
night.
friend. I was
a
Suzanne.
close friend of
Down in
Peggy.
New York, and I was the prosecutor.
My name is Suzanne Nadell-Scasio, and I'm Peggy Nadell's daughter. My relationship with Peggy was very close, as I would say most daughters and mothers' relationships are. My mother and father made a very, very handsome couple. They were striking. My mother used to like to go to the city and to the museum and to theater and movies. They loved to travel. They traveled all over the world together. When I was 3, my brother Jimmy came into the world. I think my brother developed, it's hard to put my finger on. I think he was a strange adolescent and he developed into a strange adult. His differences spoke volumes. He was not social. He was very cerebral. He went away to school, moved to Florida, never came home to see my family, never came home to see my parents. My father passed away in 2003, very unexpectedly, and it was devastating. I knew that my mother would want me to be strong, and I didn't want to let her down. I wanted to be as strong as she was. My relationship with my mother was very close. I would speak to her probably 2 or 3 times a day. Not a day ever went by that I didn't either physically see, visit, or have phone conversation with my mother. Saturday morning, I always call between, 7:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30 on the weekends. I tried the house phone. It was ringing, ringing, ringing. The answering machine never kicked on. I called the cell. Ringing, 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 ringing. I said, maybe she went out to the end of the driveway to get the newspaper or to put something in the mailbox. I must have called a dozen times to each number, and she was not picking it up. So I told my husband, Bobby, I'm going down there. My mother's not answering the phone. I want to make sure everything's okay. I opened the door, and I realized the alarm wasn't on. I'm like, gee, why wasn't the alarm on? I walked in, and I found her. And I immediately ran over, and the first thing I noticed, she was bashed in the head, and she was bleeding. And I saw blood coming out around her eyes and her nose and the side of her mouth. I said, oh my God, she fell down the stairs. Once I got in and got close, I saw it was more than a fall down the stairs. The knife was stuck in Peggy's chest. And I'm like, oh my God, she stabbed herself. And I pulled the knife out and I was gonna do CPR and I checked for a pulse and she was cold. I'm like, and then I realized everybody says, what'd you do that for? What are you thinking? You just react. I mean, you don't think about what you're doing. I ran outside. I called 911.
Oh my
Alpha 911, what is the address of your emergency?
Oh my, I need an ambulance right
What?
away. My mother's saying she thought she had a knife in her hand. Like,
Okay,
oh
we
my
should leave it.
God. I don't think so. I'm afraid to go back in. Oh my God.
When the police showed up, they kept me outside and they were asking me questions. And at that point, they wanted to take both myself and my husband, Bobby, down to the police station. So I had no choice but to go. When I was in the police station being interviewed that Saturday, they came in to me and said this was not an accident. Your mother did not fall. Your mother was murdered. I was shocked, and I could not possibly conceive who would do this to my mother. And that's when they started asking questions. I told them that I pulled a knife. I said I was trying to do CPR on her, and then I realized it was past that point. I also told them my fingerprints will definitely be on the knife, as my DNA will be all over this house. I'm here 2-3 times a week. My hair will be here. My fingerprints will be on every doorknob. I think at this point they were already trying to focus in on me, being that they had me in the police station for several hours and were asking me questions. I'm like, why are you asking me that question?
Your mother had some assets.
My mother has a lot of assets, probably close to $3 million. Do I need my lawyer? I don't know, I'm just asking me all these questions.
The following day, which was Sunday, the detectives called me and asked me to come down to the police station to talk to them. And at that point, I felt it was being directed at me, and I'm like, wait a second. I don't want to talk to you now. And I hired an attorney. They didn't like that.
My name is Earl Lawrence. I was the lead detective working the murder of Peggy Nadell. The morning of January 25th, 2014, I was the assigned detective working that weekend. So at around 8 o'clock that morning, I was at the local bagel store. That's where I received the phone call. And the desk sergeant said that there was a death of an elderly woman inside her residence and that she had slipped and fallen on a knife. The house is in an upper middle class neighborhood in Valley Cottage, New York. Very tidy, very well kept. The daughter of the victim, Suzanne Nadell Scaccio, she was in a frantic state, panicked, yelling, screaming. Upon entering the home, the victim was just inside the threshold of the doorway at the base of the stairwell. You try not to harden yourself too much to each situation. So at this moment, it really did kind of hit home because this was an 80-year-old woman at home alone. My mother is 80 years old. She lives alone. That does have a personal connection there. So you want to do all you can. My first instinct, obviously, was that it was a homicide. There was no way she accidentally fell down the stairs and stabbed herself in the chest 3 times. We saw the knife, which was very obvious a few feet away from the victim. She had obvious trauma to her head. She also had what appeared to be at least 1 or 2 stab wounds to her chest. Her neck appeared to be quite bruised, black and blue. Now, it looked like she possibly was strangled. It looked like she was stabbed, and it looks like she was beaten in the head. Now, to me, that's definite overkill. The first thing I want to determine is there a break-in? I looked at the front door, and there was no apparent force used to get into the house. I walked upstairs and went to the master bedroom. There was drawers pulled out and placed on the floor, totally out of place, because You don't put them on the ground like that. So it looked like a stage burglary. Well, at that time, Suzanne, understandably, was stressed out. She wanted us out of there. She wanted us to clean up the scene, get her mother in an ambulance, and take her to the hospital. There were red flags immediately with this investigation. One of the very first things she says in the first couple of minutes of us arriving is that her mother is worth high seven figures. Oh, and my DNA and my fingerprints are going to be all over that house and that knife. It just seemed like an odd thing to focus in on. It struck me as odd. Because she was so erratic, it took a long time to kind of settle her down and to get her to go back to the station and just talk about who may or may not have done this thing. Suzanne, she said she came to the home, her mother's home, and when she opened the door, obviously, she saw that her mother had the knife in her chest, and she pulled the knife out.
So I thought maybe she fell down the stairs because the way she was, and I saw the knife. So I pulled the knife, I touched her neck, I touched her face. I said, oh, this is not good.
That was a big concern for us. Why would you touch the murder weapon?
I guess I shouldn't have touched the knife, huh?
With Suzanne, we basically just wanted to go back the last couple of days. We wanted to know what she was doing, where she was going, where she had been. We spoke to her for a number of hours, but these investigations take time. We might have to revisit the same witness over and over again. So we made an appointment for the following day. The next day, she hired an attorney and stopped talking to us. She refused to cooperate. To me, the biggest red flag of all is when you hire an attorney and refuse to help law enforcement when your own mother is the murder victim. So if you don't want to help the people who are trying to find the people who killed your mother, who are you going to help? After Suzanne told us that she wasn't going to cooperate any further, we had to refocus our energies. As it turns out, there was no DNA evidence. There was no fingerprints. There was no hair, saliva, nothing. We were beyond frustrated, but obviously we didn't stop. We kept digging. We had to keep moving forward. We go back to basics. We take a look at the phone records for Peggy. At the same time, we're getting her son's phone records and her daughter-in-law's phone records as well. I was parsing through each individual phone call. I got to like the sixth number. We discover a phone call in approximately 1:30 in the morning, the night of the homicide, coming from a throw phone. The burner phone, I was ecstatic. We also get a notification from the alarm company that she had spoken to the alarm company because the alarm went off around the same time. So we actually have Peggy's voice speaking to the alarm company, telling the alarm dispatcher that everything is okay.
Hello, this is the monitoring center with Bullet Security.
This is Peggy Nadell. The code word is a Max. I'm sorry.
That's okay, ma'am.
Everything's fine.
I'm glad everything's okay. We'll disregard for you. Have a good night.
It was about a 20-second phone call. And in conjunction with that, the alarm going off and no forced entry at the front door, at that point, we were positive this was not a stranger lurking around the neighborhood killing old ladies. This was somebody that Peggy knew.
I'm Ann Martin, and I was a close friend of Peggy Nadell. When I found out that Peggy was murdered, I mean, I
I just couldn't believe it. It was Sunday morning. I remember picking up the phone and Susie's hysterical and she's saying, my mother's gone, my mother's gone.
Ann, it's Susie. My mother's gone. She passed away. She passed away.
She just didn't even know what to do. The police were questioning her. I think she was just in a state of shock. It was unbelievable. People were saying, oh, well, she could have done it. Why did she pull the knife out? Well, I'm sure if I saw my mother lying there, I would think, my goodness, maybe this hurts. I don't know. You don't know what you would do if you're in that situation. The detectives came to my home probably 1 or 2 days right after that. You know, asking me all kinds of questions. And of course, they did ask me what kind of a relationship she had with her children. Jimmy and Susie, they were both, I'd say, different. Susie was strong-minded. She knew what she wanted. She could take care of herself. Peggy was more protective of Jimmy. I think Peggy probably worried about Jimmy a little more because he was far away, and he did march to a different drummer after he graduated college. When he went to live in Florida, he started to work for a hospital as a psychologist, and that's where he met Diane. They went together for several years before they had any intentions of getting married. When Peggy found out that Diana was pregnant, she was delighted. She was besides herself. Peggy would fly to Florida to help. When Peggy would talk about her grandchildren, her whole face would just light up. She just thought the world of them. Diana, she liked to have designer clothes. She liked nice jewelry. They really couldn't afford all these things, and then she would depend on Peggy. I think the issues started to come up between Peggy and Diana when Diana started to become a little too demanding. Peggy was always sending them money. Peggy said, you know, Diana, this is just a little bit too much. You know, I won't go along with this. Diana says, well, if you won't come across with the money, she says, I just won't let you see the children. Well, that just absolutely devastated Peggy. I mean, not be able to see or talk to her grandchildren was horrible. It was a terrible thing to do. Peggy did mention to me that they were having problems, Diana and Jimmy, and that they might separate. And of course, Peggy was concerned. I mean, she was concerned about her son, his happiness, and how this was going to affect him. Peggy was very astute when it came to finances. She had her will and her trust. Everything was in order. Everything was divided equally between her son and her daughter. They were to get the bulk of her estate. She made it clear that if they ever separated or divorced, that, you know, Jimmy was to get the money and that Diana was not to get any of Peggy's estate, none whatsoever. So Diana, when she found out that this was so, of course, was not very happy. After Peggy died, she came in just putting her name on everything she wanted. She wanted Peggy's jewelry. She wanted Peggy's purses. Peggy had a lot of nice handbags. She wanted the furniture from the house. You start thinking and putting two and two together, and you think, you know, she has a good motive. It's very possible that she would do something like this.
My name is Darcy Greenberg, and I am a longtime friend of Suzanne. After Suzanne got out of the police station, I was waiting for her at her home, and we were treating it as an accident. We were, comforting her because her mother fell with a knife. It's a different feeling when you're comforting someone for a tragic loss like that, and then you get accused of being the one that did it. That changes everything. Sometimes I think the authorities say who has access to the house, and 95% of the time it's family. Oh, it must be her. Every day I was at her home, we would wave to the undercover cops sitting in front of her house. They watched every move she made. They had to become more intimate with the family, with Suzanne, with Peggy, to really know who could have done this to her. I had been speaking with the investigators since the beginning. You take the information that there's a lot of money involved, and you also take the information of a knife being put through someone's heart, and they tell you that it's most likely a family person, somebody that had something to gain. I looked at them, and I'm like, everything you're saying and the reasons why you think somebody would do this, I agree with you, but you're looking at the wrong person. I told them Suzanne didn't need the money. She had her own. Suzanne was a laid-back jeans girl with the same kitchen from the 1960s, the same furniture her dad picked out when she moved in. Knowing that it wasn't Suzanne, 100%. Knowing that they felt it was family, my instincts was for them to follow the greed, follow the money, follow Diana. Anyone who didn't really know Peggy would not know her wealth because she was not a flaunter. She was very smart about how she spent her money, who she spent it on. Peggy was always financially providing whatever Diana needed because it was important to her to have a good relationship with Diana, to be able to have that good relationship with her grandchildren. Most of the money would just go directly to Diana. She was in charge of the household, the bills, the money, all of that. Jimmy trusted her. From what the police told me, when they spoke to her, she was at her cousin's wedding in Maryland, and her phone pinged in Maryland. And as far as they were concerned, that's where she was. I don't know, maybe I watched too much TV. Something just didn't sit right with me. Just because a phone is somewhere doesn't mean a person is there too. Eventually, they noticed that the phone was not used. It was just there. She wasn't anywhere near the area of Maryland where the wedding was. And that was just the beginning of everything just exploding and unraveling and getting to the truth. Shortly after that, I started getting phone calls at my house. And Diana started calling me, and she was, very upset. She was calling me almost every morning, and it would be from different phone numbers, and she seemed very rattled and very off and very asking me a lot of questions where it seemed like she was getting nervous, like the police may be looking at her, which I said, they have to look at everybody. They have to look at you. They have to follow their leads, and don't worry about it. And as each day went on, it felt like it was getting worse, and she was getting more nervous and more upset about her being questioned or her being thought of as a possible suspect. Then one morning she called me and she thanked me for listening and said she's leaving and taking one of the kids and she's moving back to Jamaica. I got off the phone and I'm thinking to myself, she's leaving the country. That's it. Whether she's guilty or innocent, that's it. Once she's gone, she's gone. They can't bring her back. So I called the police and I said, listen, she's leaving. She's got her tickets. She's getting on a plane. If you think she did this, you need to go get her.
My name is Richard Moran, and I was the prosecutor handling this matter. When Diana Nadell called her friend and said, I'm leaving Jim and we're going to Jamaica, it was at that point we decided, you know what, we gotta go to Florida. You've got to be very careful when you investigate these cases, because one wrong move and your target knows you're looking at them. When you first start investigating a case, it's her daughter-in-law. Your thought really isn't that she's gonna be the one that did this. Diana, she had an alibi that she was at a wedding in Washington, D.C. What it kept coming back to is, yes, her phone was in D.C., but other than those phone calls, there was really nothing to corroborate that she was there. A big key of this investigation was the fact that just prior to Peggy Nadell being murdered, her phone received a call from an alarm company. And in looking at the caller ID, we saw that just before the alarm company called, it was what some people called a burner phone, a phone that's prepaid, that's not really associated with any one specific person. When we learned that the track phone was purchased in Florida, so close to Diana Nadell's home, that was a game changer for us. And it really shifted the focus of our investigation. We did a thorough analysis of Diana Nadell's phone records. Just a day or two before Peggy Nadell was murdered, all of a sudden, Diana Nadell starts speaking on the phone with a person named Andrea Benson, who's in Washington, D.C. She also starts communicating with a person named Tanisha Joyner in the days following the murder, people she had never spoken with prior to this happening. At that point, we had enough to go up on a wiretap. What we decided would be the perfect trigger is, let's ask Diana Nadell about her alibi. Who was she with in Washington, D.C.? And we were asking her if they could just give us a call and confirm her alibi. And once we did that, her phone calls exploded. She reached out to Tanisha Joyner, and there was this very interesting call. Tanisha says, wait a minute, was I with you from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. or from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m.? Because she doesn't know, because she wasn't with her. There were several phone calls with Andrea Benson. They wouldn't talk about the case on the phone, but there was one time where Andrea Benson said, listen, I'm in this with you. I'm in this too. The adrenaline starts pumping. We feel like we're really getting to the point where our theories are now, they're not theories, now it's evidence. It was after that phone call about her going to Jamaica, we decided to move. We sent people to interview Diana and all the people that she had involved in this plot. We had the teams actually with people under surveillance. At the word go, everybody went into action. Tanisha Joyner was taken into custody. Andrea Benson was taken into custody. And that all happened simultaneously. Once these people are being spoken to and interviewed by detectives, Diana Nadell's entire story starts to break down. Tanisha Joyner was being interviewed in Baltimore, and was telling the detectives there that Diana Nadell had asked her to make phone calls that evening. When we interviewed Andrea Benson, we learned a lot of details about this case that we just didn't know, things that we thought were always going to remain a mystery. She met Diana Nadell through her aunt. Andrea's aunt was supposed to pick up Diana Nadell from the airport in Washington, D.C., but she couldn't, and so she sent Andrea. Once she picked Diana Nadell up, Diana asked her if she wanted to make $10,000. And to do so, she would have to go up to New York and kill Diana's mother-in-law. While driving up to Valley Cottage, Diana had Andrea Benson activate the burner phone, and that was along Route 95. On their way up, Diana, every time they were at a toll plaza, would hide her face so that her face couldn't be seen on camera. Once they got to Peggy Nadell's home in Valley Cottage, Diana Nadell called Peggy from the burner phone and told her she was in the area, could she come in? It had to have been such a surreal scenario for her. Her daughter-in-law's at her door with a stranger. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Nonetheless, it was her daughter-in-law. And she let her in, gave her a glass of water, sat down and spoke with her. At that point, Diana asked Peggy, can we go upstairs? Peggy told Diana she was gonna go use the restroom. So Diana and Andrea were in the room alone, and Diana begins like, we're gonna do this now. And Andrea told us that she had taken off the strap from her pocketbook. It unhooked on either side, and she was gonna use that to strangle Peggy. Diana starts talking to Peggy about the family jewelry, and they start going down the stairs, and Peggy's in front, Andrea's right behind her. That time, Andrea starts strangling Peggy from behind. And in interviewing Andrea, she kept repeating the phrase, but she wouldn't go, she wouldn't die. Diana ran to the kitchen and grabbed a kitchen knife and brought it back and was telling Andrea, stab her, stab her. And Andrea said she refused to do it. And so while she was choking Peggy, Diana stabbed Peggy Nadell in the chest. Once Diana was picked up in Florida and brought in for an interview, at first she didn't know why she was there. And then she saw Detective Lawrence and Detective Colhatchard walk in the room, and her face dropped. And the first word she said was, "You think I killed my mother-in-law?"
You know who we are, right?
Yeah, why wouldn't I know who you are? Do you think I killed my mother-in-law? Is that what this is about? I did not murder my mother-in-law.
Under those circumstances, it was very telling. Diana Nadell and Andrea Benson were both arrested and charged with murder and had to wait to be extradited to the state of New York. Just when we thought this case couldn't get any crazier, it did.
I was fast asleep. It was like 11 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night. And Bobby came in and woke me up and said, "Your cousin is here." I came out. They told me they arrested Diana. And I was shocked, but I wasn't surprised. I think the first thing I said, I knew she had something to do with it.
When Andrea Benson and Diana Nadell were first charged, they were charged with murder in the second degree. Once Andrea Benson flipped and became a witness for the prosecution, we were then able to upgrade the charges against Diana Dell to murder in the first degree, murder for hire. Tanisha Joyner also became state's evidence and pleaded guilty to a lesser crime.
Andrea, she doesn't come from a lot. She's had a tough upbringing, as it were, and she has quite a criminal history. She has a young child at home, doesn't have a husband, works a menial job at one of the local supermarkets. Diana offers her $10,000 if she would help her kill Peggy. She agrees on the drive from the airport.
Andrea Benson only received $500 up front and was going to get the rest of the money when Diana got her money, which never came, obviously.
I received a phone call from a detective in the jurisdiction of where Diana Nadell was being held in custody pending trial. And we were told that an inmate had reported that Diana Nadell tried to hire her to arrange for the murder of Tanisha Joyner. There are some people that can't help but to try to control every aspect of a situation. And Diana Nadell kept trying to do that even while she was in jail. We met with the inmate. She was fitted with a recorded device and went back into the area where Diana Nadell was. And at that time, Diana Nadell did exactly what the inmate said she did. She gave her the information of Tanisha Joyner, said she needed to be dead. We went in the grand jury and indicted Diana Nadell at that point for attempting to have this witness murdered. And at that point, she had no choice but to plead guilty. Diana Nadell's attorney came to us and asked us if we would consider a plea of 23 to life. And after speaking with the family and weighing everything, for us, that was something we could live with.
I saw Diana when she was being arraigned. That's the first time I saw her after my mother's murder. She wouldn't even turn around and look at me.
This murder was about greed. Diana learned that if she left her husband prior to Peggy's death, she would get nothing. And that wasn't something she was willing to accept.
Diana saw my mother as a cash machine. Diana thought she knew what my mother was worth. I didn't know what my mother was worth. I knew there was money. I didn't know how much money. It didn't matter.
It sounds cheesy, but you become a prosecutor because it's one of the only jobs in the world where your job is to just do justice and to do the right thing. This case began with walking into Peggy Nadell's home and seeing her brutally murdered on her floor. And it ended with Diana Nadell serving what I believe will be the rest of her life in prison.
I know that Diana is not enjoying jail. I've heard through the grapevine, Diana refuses to tell anybody why she is there. I guess she's embarrassed. She doesn't want anybody to know she's a murderer. I think to this day, she's still claiming she was framed.
She just ruins so many lives, you know, what friends, family. What Susie had to go through, and even I'm sure what Jimmy had to go through.
Now Suzanne and Jimmy have to live without their mother and live with the nightmare of what happened. Not only did Suzanne and Jimmy lose their mother, they lost each other.